First. PM, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Staff, would you like to do roll call?
Molly Antivine,
Here.
Lisa Caltabiano,
Here.
Dan Gritsko, Josh Peck,
Here.
Shannon Strassner.
Here. All right, thank you. Let me read to the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay. Report on relevant action by town council. Since Dan's not here, Javier, do you have something that you can fill us in on? Is there anything that we should know that's related to planning commission?
Like planning commission. No. Let me look up the other agenda, but I think mostly we've been talking about the election. And then about, I have a broken down maintenance vehicle, so we've been trying to reappropriate for that. So you've seen Jam running around in a gator. Let me check the agenda from last week, because apologies, I didn't anticipate this.
There was a question of whether town council would want staff to submit a grant request for the sidewalk evaluation. That Lincoln had started to piggyback off of Matt's old work.
Yeah.
So you guys are gonna talk to town council about that. I don't know if you mentioned that last month.
Yeah, I talked to town council, I didn't bring it up. Talked to town council following meeting, but I'm not getting a lot of input for interest in that, from that meeting. So I kind of dropped it,
We'll put it back on their agenda.
Well, the deadline already passed.
yeah,
Oh, yay!
but I might suggest maybe. One thing that came to mind now, this might be a way wrong, I'm reworking again the set capital improvement plan. And I think recent events have kind of shown the value of a capital improvement plan. And I know that you worked as a body on that, so maybe getting some input on that, been working with government services a little bit on it. But maybe in the next month or something, just depending on what the cycle is, because I'll probably already be working on the budget for next year, starting next month.
Yeah.
I might include some of that or maybe share the last one, I think. Maybe including that as a possibility in there, that's a recommendation from the planning commission, it's worthwhile. I see the merits. Of what you guys are thinking with those sidewalk projects. And that TAP grant, and then, yeah, I explained that it's, you're setting yourself up in regards to having that planning and then. Kind of becoming more shovel ready for a project, which is really the intention of that grant.
Yes, that's the intention of that, and that's what people in the community have said to us again and again about what they want to see before any more development happens. And we've talked about it a lot as a body, so yeah, it is something that's pretty important to the town. Hopefully, town council can see the value of that.
We've been having a real disconnect between what we're trying to accomplish here and what we've asked to have town council report on. I almost feel like maybe they need to send us a report on certain issues like that, because we didn't push to have them talk about it, so they just dropped it.
Hmm.
And it may be that no one there is interested, but they should be.
Yeah, Javier, where do you think that disconnect is, and what do you think we could do about it?
One thing that comes to mind is we're gonna have a new year. And it might be an opportunity for there to be introductions between the council members and planning commission. That might be an opportunity to kind of learn and understand what the planning commission does, because I think you kind of nailed it on the head, it's like, you guys are thinking out. Well, at least 5 years out, usually 10 years out, even the presentation now, and then that TAP grant is probably an example of that. And then charitably, there's a common thread that sometimes there's tensions between the planning commission and town council due to the different priorities they have. And the different mission.
You mean like on whole?
In general, I think of it almost as a perennial thing you'll read about in the news, I'll put it that way in Virginia.
Okay, well, maybe it's time that we got some sort of boost in the liaison going on with town council, and I don't mean to talk bad about Dan, well, he's not even here to face that, but I really do feel like there's been some omissions.
Mhm.
And that's been ongoing, so.
Now I'm just shooting from the hip.
Shoot,
We've got a joint session, we haven't had one between
we haven't,
town council and planning commission, and we have. Part of the sensation I've gotten last week was trying to orient new council members and hit the
Yeah.
ground running.
yeah,
I think if there was a focused agenda, and we've talked about having a joint meeting to discuss the comp plan. So maybe that is in the cards after all, when we hear from Lincoln, we could talk more about that, but yeah, I mean, I think they definitely need to hear from us in some way, shape or form, whether that's the liaison or whether it's someone going to the meeting or whether it's us having a joint meeting. I don't know that we would need to have a joint meeting just to say, hey, we need to follow up on this grant. But
we missed an opportunity to at least put one out there and find out whether we would qualify and what kinds of things were we missing. That was an opportunity to kind of try that out and see how that went. Yeah, I don't want, let's not lose any more opportunities. If anybody comes up with a grant, let's put it on the calendar or something, to let us know when we're getting close to a deadline. I kind of missed the ball on that one. I haven't been volunteering very much lately. Been a little distracted.
Think. I'm thinking I might have the chair and the mayor. Just meet to discuss in general, and then part of the idea of the CIP plan or a training plan is that so it's in. It's in some kind of structure as objectives, like into the future. I think you could put a TAP grant until like a year or two from now on like a CIP plan, and then you plan towards that. And it's part of the process rather than it just being a discussion or an ongoing item. It's in writing.
As far as our goals and what we need their support on.
I think more it's planning commission's recommendation. I think in general, I'm pretty interested in getting a CIP plan done this year. For the same reasons like this, so we were thinking out a few years at a time. Rather than a year out.
I would recommend we distinctly write that goal into the comp plan regarding grants and such for infrastructure.
Yeah.
And at least it's on record that that's what the planning commission recommends. So if anyone asks later, hey, why do we keep on missing grants and stuff, we can say at least it was recommended.
Yeah,
And it's the elected officials that chose not to pursue that recommendation.
I'm sure there are platforms out there that help you kind of track grants and make sure with dates and things like that, but in the absence of that, let's do a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
I love spreadsheets.
I think Lincoln's on a point there, because then staff, when they're looking at grants, can say, hey, this is a comp plan priority. And point towards that as rationale behind any actions or any recommendations. Same as zoning, we have some kind of zoning change. We discuss it as a planning commissioner, part of the recommendation, you're gonna weigh a comp plan against it. You do it for an SUP, for example.
So is that something that you all would look out for and talk to town council about, or would we start the action on that?
I think there's 3 courses you could discuss tonight about including it as in part of the comp plan. I think I'll probably come back to you to ask for some input on the CIP plan. Because I want to implement one for next year. That being another opportunity to include it, and then I might suggest the chair talk with the mayor, just to kind of get that thread kind of going. And then I'll probably be reporting out during the work session in Grisco's absence.
That's a great idea. I mean, whatever we can do to kind of improve that.
I think those would be 4 actionable steps.
Sounds wonderful.
Good question.
Okay, thank you. Matters from the public?
No one's online.
All right, new business, none. All right, old business, Lincoln, so the
Yes,
floor is
okay.
all yours.
So earlier this afternoon, I sent you a link to the comp plan Word document. So you should have that.
Thank you.
And I also sent you a Word doc with all of the section that deals with planning history and demographics and economics. So this is the section that I've spent a lot of time for the last couple of months making it as clear as possible. So I wanted you to have a chance to look through it, and if there's anything that doesn't make sense or is unclear, please let me know and I can reword it, or we can at least have a discussion on, hey, that data is not available, or oh yeah, it is available, let me add that in. Do you know what I mean? So that's in the Word document inside the email that I sent. So previously there were sections where we just didn't have the data, and those were highlighted in the yellow, you might remember. For instance, there was a lot of previous data from previous comp plan versions that had regarding jobs and a number of buildings in town and so on and so forth. And even though the census data or other data that was pulled maybe 10 or 20 years ago might have been available then, it's not available now with any dependency. So that's why I tried to narrow it down and reword what I could. To not come in on data that we just don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that's all in that Word file, so if you have a moment in the next week to give any feedback, that'd be much appreciated, okay?
so is that any of the data from what Nancy's been working on?
No, so that'd be
It's not
separate.
related to that.
But this is data mainly pulled from the 2020 census.
Oh,
And also it includes the information about our population projection and also historical population numbers.
Okay.
So what I suspect happened, I found some discrepancies in the historic population numbers. And I think this was a somewhat common mistake because you might know that when the census figures come out, they're actually in draft form for several years, and it takes the census
yeah,
several years to iron the numbers out, because they adjust the numbers to factor in residents that might be unhoused, so on and so forth. So they have other data sources to kind of adjust the numbers. So what I think's previous comp plan version, they might have gotten one of the draft numbers, and then it came back, the population difference was 20 or 30 people to my memory. But it's just nice to base off the official figure, right? Because we're looking back in history. So I double checked all those numbers in the population chart going back to 1950, I think. So that's all based on the official census data. And then some of the data is from the ACS, American Community Survey. So what happens, the census is every 10 years, it's a decennial census every decade. But the US Census Bureau, they make estimates, updated estimates. Like, let's say there's a big employer that moves to town, they will massage the numbers to accommodate for that. Yeah. So what's important is, a census is practically counted each individual person minus maybe the unhoused. But a community survey is really an estimate, but they're different things, do you know what I mean?
mhm.
So if Albemarle County grows by 10%, that doesn't necessarily mean Scottsville's growing by 10%, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's why I was very careful in the data that I shared with you today to explain that it's estimated, yeah.
Yeah,
Because Albemarle County's headed like this, and Scottsville historically, the population's headed like
Yeah.
that. So that's why it's important to be clear in the language. So
Right.
that's just the response about Ms. Gill. I haven't heard back from her recently about that.
okay,
But we've got new information. Maybe that's a great segue to the map.
right.
Okay. So we don't have this in digital version like this, but I'll just give you an update. This is what the tremendous work that Jack's been doing. So as you might remember, the GIS maps somehow was lost over the last years. And the Planning District Commission was previously helping the town, but we don't have the files anymore. And we reached out to them, but Jack stepped in and he did a tremendous amount of information on this map. So this is the existing land use map. So I just made some comments on what should be shown in this map. We don't want to show too much, but we don't want to show too little. And it's important to, I think, label some of the roads. Javier and I were talking earlier that, if you have a map the size of Charlottesville, you really need roads to kind of find your way. Where are you? Where's your parcel? Scottsville's, of course, smaller, but I still think looking at the previous land use map, to highlight a few roads, and I suggest not to use the red color. And we take away some of the minor roads, and previously there was a lot of text clash, like the text was on top of some of the downtown lots. So you couldn't read
Yeah.
Text or live, yeah, so I think downtown is not necessarily the label very many streets, but, you know, Hardware is a major one, Bird, Poplar, so on and so forth.
So this is like the current use map that we have based off, so you can see that naturally it's a draft at the top and Lincoln and I today we're working on some. I would say some clarity, more than anything, the real substance is
Yeah.
there. Is really useful and really impressive what it is, but we'll have something closer to this and that's included in your comp plan and then, you know, it'll get updated on the page, on the website also.
Yeah, cause some of this is. We've got that color thing again. Just kind of looking at the yellows, they look exactly the same.
Especially the reds,
The red.
the red was what point, cause. The two yellow, your rural areas are both yellow. Which,
Yeah, what's the difference
I
between
think
the?
that.
we've got village residential on the left, and then, yeah, then there's two rural on the key.
Well, there's,
So we've got
yeah,
Mark
there's
one.
3 at least.
Yeah, one green and two.
There's 2 yellows and a green,
Yep,
so that's kind of hard to distinguish.
So maybe what I can suggest also, let us pull up the previous map from the last comp plan version. And maybe you could kind of see if it's worth to have a zoom in at the downtown area. Because, you know, with
Yeah.
this, even though I suggest here to him that we crop it to be able to zoom in a little bit better, and you can just pass this around, but even the labels, you know. This, if he turns off this hill shade, the background, we'll lose all the roads, that's why it's important to have the roads in black or something.
right, something that's already drawn.
So if we look at that, existing land use,
So,
You make one of them.
on page 20.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
One of the colors could be like hot pink,
um,
something very different from.
and then, also,
Yeah.
this is me being picky, but, Dowen Pond, for the, in the key as well, it's repeated a couple times. Or no, wait, it's only the one, that one, the one downtown is correct, but
Oh,
the
downtown.
one is, yeah.
Downton Abbey.
Fire rockets to rename the neighborhoods in town.
Yes.
We go down here.
And then you're talking about.
Downton, yep,
Okay.
oh,
And
yeah,
he-
flood zone.
We totally understand that he's been working really hard on this and everything, we understand the typos and stuff, but
I think
let
it's-
us know about.
I think his forte is that map, and then, as you can see, well, Lincoln and I worked on to pass along. Just want to give you kind of a rough figure. of
Yeah.
what it looks like.
Yeah.
I don't
Why
know.
are there two
Then-
downtown residentials?
So the one in red is gonna be any buildings that are also as commercial buildings, I would
Okay.
assume. Is that
Say
gonna
what?
be-
Dual use.
So,
Oh,
Oh,
you can't, the problem with the map is it's so small, we're not gonna be able to see
yeah,
even the parcel, so another option would be.
Goes there.
To have a zoom in.
Commercial.
yes,
downtown,
definitely,
And then,
for the commercial districts alone, just to assess that. So what is orange on that one?
Residential multifamily.
now, is that correct, that the red downtown is buildings that are zoned for the commercial, and then what is orange is just.
Multifamily,
Multifamily residential, that kind of
Yes.
use, okay.
Yeah.
that's weird, is that Valley Street with the orange beside it?
Which map are you talking about?
The off
Yes,
screen.
yep, so.
So this is valley right here, but
I'm just surprised
the
that,
hatch is mixed use,
uh,
so this one. That's part of the school, so that makes sense, yeah.
okay,
So maybe on the key, it would be beneficial to write commercial downtown residential.
well, why is it downtown residential?
Okay,
Because
another,
it's like
part of
mixed
residential.
use.
So why isn't it just called mixed use?
Yeah,
Well, okay, another thing to point out, and Javier, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the existing land use plan. It doesn't necessarily relate to the zoning plan.
Oh, okay,
Because zoning is.
But that doesn't.
For the future, anything is built in the future.
yeah,
Existing land use, this could be very historic structures that are not in compliance with the current zoning ordinance.
yeah.
Or
yeah,
the grandfathered in, you know.
Oh, okay, so are there any businesses or residential units or whatever it is, are they? When we compare it to the current zoning, should we be making changes to that? I mean, if they're not zoned correctly, or are they all zoned for the current zoning and not the? I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get you
That's what you're
to.
trying to say. So for example. Scottsville, so it's easier actually to point out the exact example.
Yeah,
Our zoning map has skiing. Zone commercial, and my assumption is that was grandfathered in way before, because you wouldn't. Technically, our zoning, you wouldn't allow that kind of commercial use in an entrance corridor,
mhm.
but then our zoning map. Is trying to get into compliance, so
Yeah.
that it moves it forward, so you'll have.
So if something were to change hands, then that would update the zoning. Or we would only allow,
It all depends on the parcel, so for example, somebody. Maybe a lapsed SUP.
Yeah.
The easiest thing to say is that as these parcels change hand and change use. Your zoning administrator will review the zoning, the town code, the map. And then any history on the parcel identification, and then that will make a determination. So it gets complicated.
I'm sure, I am looking to the future. And just wondering how that would work, but anyway, thank you for explaining that.
So maybe that dovetails, this is a preliminary zoning map. And then that kind of sets up the structure of having a map done through GIS to next do the future use map, which we've reviewed with planning commissioners. I think we did a 2-1 maybe 3 or 4 months ago and had some notes. So I'll probably send that over email to you guys next after we wrap up this. It's easier to do. This is a starting point to move forward. And that takes into some of those aspects where it's like, hey, what are we anticipating in the future? And then what are we striving towards?
Right, and I'm just defaulting to my preoccupation of downtown and how it's zoned. And if it's correct,
Mhm.
and if things need to be fixed and things like that. So, that makes sense, thank you.
So just pull up the current zoning map that's on the town website. And you can see it's a lot simpler downtown. It has commercial. Downtown residential. It doesn't.
Yeah,
differentiate mixed
That
use.
seems to make more sense, but
Yeah,
maybe I'm just thinking of what's currently zoned. Okay, so,
yeah, I mean. My recommendation maybe is to keep it as simple as possible. I mean, on the map in front of you. Breaks it down to a lot of things, it's hard to see. Yeah, and there's no zoning that relates to mixed use right now. There's a recommendation in the back of the comp plan, you might remember that Wallace drew up that. Let's create a mixed use.
I got you.
Yeah,
That probably should be something we try to prioritize in 25, because most of all, I mean, I'd say. 75% of all the buildings here on Valley Street are gonna be mixed, you've got apartments on top and then businesses on the bottom.
But is there? Is there any way to kind of enforce the fact that that's what's supposed to be happening at the building?
I mean, right now, commercial zoning, which is most of the downtown, you'll have to have that SPU for a decent amount of like dwellings. Or residency rather than business. And then, for example, you still need an SPU for Airbnbs, which I would consider. something totally different from just somebody living long-term lease. I think. Without making assumptions, it might be looking at the commercial zoning. And asking yourself specifically for you, Molly, like, do you feel like the zoning that we have in hand? For commercial and how we have the downtown map, if those both work together. I think so, but it might be worth
Might be worth,
talking a little bit about it together.
I would appreciate that.
Cause I feel like I know where you're coming from previous conversations, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not articulating it very well, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I understand and it was very helpful what you told me, no worries there. So I'll get with you sometime.
So just to explain more, this is what Lawless wrote up, so he proposed changing commercial to mixed use. In terms of
Okay,
terminology,
uh-huh,
and
maybe that's where I got that, cause I kind of didn't understand that at first, why. You know, it wasn't all mixed use, but there's a lot of grandfathers back there.
yeah, and you can see the text is, if you look at black text, the only addition here is the text in bold.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's pretty much comparable,
okay,
so it's more of a renaming, and mixed use is a much more broadly used term now in zoning ordinances, yeah. Than just commercial now. Yeah. So maybe what I suggest, Javier, we need to think a little more about. The labels on the map, what do we call these colors and how do we differentiate the colors a little bit better? In terms of hot pink or purple or something, so we don't have so many shades of reds or orange. And if we go more towards the zoning map colors, hold on, where is that? Let's see where was that?
more colors.
we go back to.
Oh, there it is.
It's
Maybe we go back to something simple.
And that's what I was thinking about today.
Yeah, and then the markups on the things that you do, good, like just on the protection. Town roads and communications.
Should we be striving towards a differentiation of colors similar to our current one? That's our current zoning map,
I think that's pretty clear cut.
that's the direction, okay, that works for us.
I like your zooming in the idea as well. I think this map is great, but there's too much around it and could be brought in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, even this is a PDF, it's not even printed in a book. In a book or report, it'd be impossible. But here at least you can zoom in, but even here it's difficult to
Yeah,
see. Another point to make, Javier and I discussed that the FEMA hasn't updated the flood zone map yet, but the great thing to do is we just use what we have, and then if that needs to be updated later. I can't remember the reason for the updates, was it something to do with the creek or?
Doesn't know.
It's been, Lawless told me about the update when he was here, so it's been a while. Yeah, but I think right now Jack is working on drawing the historic district and entrance corridor.
that's another question. You all just put up signs for the historic district, is that correct, or had I just not noticed it?
Oh, which signs?
Like up by Hardware and 20. There's a historic district, kind of like maroon or brown sign.
Oh, I need to check into that, maybe. I didn't put it up, maybe
Okay.
somebody else put it up.
There's somebody else, like Jan was really into the historic district one day.
I don't know, maybe not. If it's brown,
Okay.
I gotta figure it out.
Cause I was just, there have been a couple of maps that show different boundaries to the historic district. So I was kind of curious about that. But no huge big deal, but I just started thinking, okay, they have it right as you're entering 20 into the town. Is that the border of the historic district? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let me. Let me look around, I drove around today doing like the look around.
Okay.
I do every week and
It could have been a dream I had, but I don't think so.
we put E911 signs up. The one thing that is interesting and Josh knows from ARB is that. Our historic overlay district is just taking our 1800s town limits and then overlaying it on currently now. So
Mhm.
that's why it's kind of blocking that way.
Yeah,
But there's an old map that we have in the office and might be on one of the walls, so.
well, this sign is not, I mean, it's not showing a borderline or anything like that. I just was curious as to which map might be correct for historic, but I'll check with you on that.
So then also just compare with our comments that were written on that plan, you can see how the simplified number of roads is black, and there's just a few labels, not too many, so you can kind of tell where you are. And then we just remove these that, you know, have too much going on and we show the zoom in. I think that's the plan. So the zoom in will be something about like this, so it would stretch from the old school over here, the playing fields, and a little bit of the factory maybe, all the way to kind of the boundary of the county, right in there. Yeah. Just the areas that are hard to read in the bigger map.
Yes.
The only trouble is that we have to be very careful about discrepancies between the two maps. Because that would be a legal issue, because these are legal documents. That's why even the typos and things, we need to have several run throughs in the colors. Because if a mistaken color could be made, that could, not on the existing land use map, but the future land use map, that could be an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's this existing map, so also to answer your question, Ms. Angevine, Nancy Gill's work. So now, what I think we can do is, now that he has drawn all of the parcels and they're all color coded, we can compare back to Nancy Gill's work and see if it tallies directly, I think.
Okay. That sounds like fun. If you need any help, let me know.
Okay. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to talk about, I'd like to go back to this section about the proposed land use changes. Zoning updates as they're called, okay. So I know the last meeting we had a discussion on some of these things. I know Lisa, you had a question previously in the document about forest sprawl. That was one question, yeah. And I looked it up in the existing land use code that came from Albemarle County in 1994. So just to explain, because you weren't here last month, I did look that up, so that's what it is right now in the zoning code, and then we can update it to the new terminology, forestry. But I would suggest, since I think it was two of us, two planning commissioners and myself, we talked through all of these zoning updates. We might want to do it again as a whole group, because you know, based on the new information, you know, our previous discussion on the maps, so on and so forth. If we can do that right now, okay, so the current zoning is rural areas, okay? And you might understand this to be the least dense residential zoning that the town has. And one big intention is to have you know, a lot of agricultural land use, the chickens that we talk about as small town character, right? The proposal from Lawless was to update this to called rural residential, okay?
Show the current use map and then show where residential is.
Okay.
For some context. Then maybe looking at the current map, so you can just get an idea of what parts of town we're talking about. I found that at least starting off here really useful, kind of get a feel. There's a new guy.
So And again, the colors don't directly match, but yeah, let's choose that one. Yeah, everything that's this light green in this map is rural residential. And then the next step higher in density is village residential, which is yellow, okay? So my proposal, I believe it was 2 months ago, because we're not looking at the future land use map yet, we haven't colored that, but my proposal would be to densify a little bit more of this. We change it from rural areas, one step up to village residential. And my recommendation is because a landowner could go out tomorrow and start digging and building houses based on by right development, right?
Yeah,
The problem is if it's too low density, they will just do low density to do it and get it done with and earn profit, right? So what a lot of people do. But if you give them a little incentive to densify even a little bit, because the difference between the green and the yellow, the yellow can be, I believe, up to 4 development units per acre. This is about 1 development unit per acre. So there's a difference there, yeah.
so does that coincide, what your proposal, does that coincide with Southern?
Well, I haven't discussed with them for 9 months or a year.
Oh, no,
This is my recommendation.
Sure, I'm just saying, in anticipation of that.
Mhm.
Are we looking to take that swath and make it village residential?
So for
So
example,
there's an incentive to put more density there.
so let's see. So this portion. Sorry. So for example, one of the 2 parcels that you're discussing, Molly, one's village residential, it's rural.
Oh, okay, I was
Two different
thinking that it was down further closer to the lake. But,
The one is here at the water tower.
Oh,
That's
right.
The water tower,
okay,
then the other one is. that
yeah, that's the one.
Right here, and then the part of that they also.
Yeah, so it's this rural and then village residential. I think a better conversation is maybe what you want to be the starting off point, because you're essentially establishing what are your permitted uses
Mhm,
on these
Yeah.
parcels.
yeah,
That's how I would approach it when thinking it through. And then to Lincoln's point, I think. Then you're starting off with a little bit more density. On these parcels, but then again, village residential is pretty. It's pretty not dense, it's just one step down from rural.
So if I was going to hypothesize, they want even more. dense,
right. And that
than
might
village
be
residential.
their SUP coming along. I get that, and I think that I don't want to correlate everything to what we see as future development. And making it more enticing to them, but that's what I was curious about, if it fell within what your recommendation was.
Yeah, I agree with what Javier just phrased it as a.
Okay.
a starting point.
I gotcha.
I think the starting point right now is too low density, because if anyone could go out and build on their lot tomorrow,
Mhm,
and then that development is locked in for many years, right?
yeah,
I think the town would benefit from having. A discussion with any developer and see how both parties can meet in the middle.
sorry, I'm
Yeah.
so on PC, but yeah, so I agree with your proposal, I'm sorry, I just.
But let's say, for instance, a developer would want more density, or they even want to put in some, have a nonprofit housing developer come in, for instance, like the schools or
Yeah.
Piedmont Housing Alliance. Then that's an even more detailed discussion about where something like that would be located.
Mhm,
I think Mr. Bill, I forgot.
Heinzen.
He was even talking about retirement home or something like that, I think that's a great way of thinking out of the box, so. Those discussions can be had later, but I think raising this minimum density would be a good idea.
Okay. Great, thank
So
you.
that's rural areas, so the main idea is, yes, change some to village residential, but still. Maintain most of the ground along Poplar Spring Road, that's kind of your small town character road, I guess you could say. You drive down Poplar Spring Road, you can hear the chickens and you can see the horses. So that's your, yeah.
Cute horses.
Yeah, and I mean, there were some great suggestions by community members from our engagement about. Theming the town around different ideas like equestrian town, right? So this is that area that there are some hopeful. Horse owners right now, and they could have trails that leading to the Van Cleef Nature Area, and so on and so forth there.
That'd be really cool.
So my recommendation would be keep everything on Poplar Spring Road along there. Kind of your low density rural agricultural area. And then everything gravitating towards Hardware Street becomes a little more dense, yeah. And Hardware Street, I would think it has more opportunity to upgrade the road eventually, maybe VDOT would upgrade the road, because right now it's. It's
very
quite
narrow.
narrow, not a lot of side pavement.
Right.
But I have to say, from my experience at Poplar Spring Road, it's even worse and more winding and so on and so forth, right?
Not necessarily worse, but
It's,
Yeah.
okay,
More
yeah,
rural,
more rural.
with no connotation.
Okay, so that's my explanation here, and I'm just basing on what Lawless wrote, so it's a change in terminology, but B a change in our future land use map slightly, okay. Then village residential, so this is mainly a differentiation regarding where there's sewer and where there's not, okay. So this is.
can
This
you
is-
enlarge that just a teeny
Yeah.
bit? Thank you.
So this is basically, deleting that text regarding the sewer.
Deleting the text?
Yeah, because it's on the left and then deleting it on the right, so the left is current and then the right is.
Okay.
Delete that. Because I think. In Wallace's mind, it's not as important as much anymore regarding where the sewage is and so forth like that. I don't know if you guys have had previous discussions on that.
Well.
It makes sense more densities where the sewer and water is serviced.
Yeah, we talked about the East Village area being ideal because it's so close to the infrastructure, it wouldn't take much to build from there, it's pretty much shovel ready.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, any area that we do raise the density and has to consider the sewer and water, of course. That's the area, that's the issue, it's more of a detailed discussion regarding the topography and what area can be served, right? Yeah.
And another aspect is that I think also the it's not anachronistic, but the text. A lot of village residential has sewer. So the text doesn't really match with that. You're saying it's village residential for spaces that don't have sewer. While, for example, what's the last year, Kevin Quicks, you had sewer, zone village residential there, you had sewer on Poplar Spring right there. So, I don't know what the previous language was, but I think
There's more of a conflict in improving the situation.
but there's more sewer coverage in village residential. I'm trying to pull up the map, but I think that's also the rationale in that kind there too, in addition. So the zoning actually reflects the reality of the town a little bit closer. Might be some language like that, so. We have they're out.
Okay, so sorry, this, okay. So the other one is residential 3 to town residential. This is the discrepancy you might remember, I started doing a word search in the town code. There's 3 different ways how R3 is explained. It's a discrepancy, there's R3, and then it's mentioned as town residential in some places, and then there's a whole nother terminology, I can't remember what it is. So this is more of a update the terminology and clarify things.
Yeah, Gordonsville had that on their stuff, the R3.
I think it's a historical term.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm right about that. So I look over GIS, is that there's a lot of more sewer and water coverage. So I think the original intention of village residential, sorry, was that like middle area where you wanna have a little bit more density, but you're expecting that, you know. You have to set your way up to be able to have those services on hand, sorry, well, and septic. But, yeah. Scottsville's really well covered in regards to water.
What's going on with Jay and the dollhouse?
Oh, that's another one. They can't find the hookup, so I've been
Yeah.
going back and forth trying to advocate for him. The other thing and the good thing about having updates to the service authority here, is they update their maps. We're so old, we're having those things where we sometimes don't know exactly where hookups are.
Sure.
So he's having just kind of a nightmare.
Yeah,
We think it's in the.
so they're not helping him at all with that.
Trying to help.
I
him
know you
out.
are, I know you are, I was just curious, I know he went in front of town council, I just didn't know if there was an update on that.
I think he needs a little bit more help because where the original map is not where he's been digging.
Yeah,
I think there's an inconsistency and he's found that, I think it's in the road. When they thought it was additionally on the side, and it's West Main, you know, it's one of the oldest, if not the road here,
yeah,
so. I've been poking him a little bit.
so just to show this existing R3 on the map, it's this orange. So it's closest to downtown. So the proposal by Lawless was to change it to terminology from R3 to town residential. Because none of our other zoning areas are numbered anymore. We don't have any other 3s or 2s or 1s. And then you can read the deleted text is in red. Delete medium density and bring in more varied housing types. So this would allow more range of proposals for developers. Yeah. Okay, and then back to this idea of commercial being changed to mixed use in terminology. And delete the term uptown. Because there would be no mixed use at like a shopping center, for instance. But that raises a good point. I guess we would need to retain commercial for areas like the shopping center, right?
Yeah, because just because something downtown
Yeah.
is commercial doesn't mean it's also mixed use. I think certainly uptown, you have a distinction, there's commercial only, but I think downtown, that's the case too.
Yeah, so maybe it's not,
some,
maybe it's not change, it's more of a mixed use would be an additional use.
So
yeah,
renaming those that are downtown that
Yeah, the most,
could
the
be
most,
residential and
the
commercial.
most change would be downtown, uptown would not change. This would still be red.
Yeah.
And it would retain commercial zoning. Some of these would change to purple or pink or whatever. Down
blue,
here based
get some
on
blue in there.
blue, yeah,
Here's your chance.
yeah.
Favorite color.
So I think this is a really, yeah, this is important, so.
be shifting the downtown to mixed use and maintaining commercial uptown.
Yeah, on a case by case basis, what I would suggest, at the next meeting, we have the zoom in plan. And then we look at the existing versus opportunities to recommend a rezoning. Yeah. And then everyone, maybe that's a piece of homework possibly. Just spend a few moments walking or driving downtown and you can envision. What properties do you see in the future as being mixed use versus being entirely commercial? So I was just looking I rode the Connect bus here, so that was an adventure, first time I've ever done that.
I don't even know what that is. Is it a shuttle of some sort that comes?
It's a regional transportation system, yeah. So
So
it comes from-
not jaunt,
John is for the ADA, they pick up door to door.
Yeah.
But then the
they've been
Connect is
starting-
for anyone
Okay.
wanting to commute, so it starts at Barracks Road, and then goes all the way to Dillon.
Wow,
So I got on Barracks Road at 5:10 and I got here about 6:10.
that's not bad.
It's free, they have
Yeah.
a grant until 2026.
Wow.
And they dropped me off and another lady, right at the start of the bridge. On the right hand side, and that lady parked her car next to the market,
Yeah,
so she probably lives in the area somewhere. But it starts down in Dillon in the morning at around 6 a.m. or something, quite early. And it brings folks to the hospital, the UVA. And it's free, like I said, so if I live down here, I'll be up there. Save a lot of money on commuting, yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, back to this, I think it's worthwhile to drive or walk downtown and kind of see what you envision, like this building I was just about to mention, the one that's been for sale a long time.
the Beal building.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can ask in your mind, do you see that as entirely commercial or do you see it as mixed use?
well, so he says, I'll give you a big discount if you make it into a hotel. But that makes me think, what kind of zoning would that be? I mean, is that just commercial?
It's commercial, and you would have to come back for special use
Is it temporary?
Commercial?
for house, for hotel.
Yeah, if you were going to, but right now, what's the current zoning? Commercial, okay.
and then
Interesting.
It's commercial, yeah, it's
the
commercial.
question about that,
Uh,
you can't take away a property owner's rights. So if you're downgrading their zoning. You're not allowed to do that, so if you move from commercial to mixed use, is that an example of downgrading?
no,
Because you're giving additional
Yeah.
benefits.
I think,
But if you're requiring that they be mixed use in the future.
no, you're adding a permitted use.
Yeah.
So I would say commercial is, our current commercial zoning is rather restrictive. More to mixed use and residential, so you have to come back for an SUP. But from the language that we have up there, it seems like it's more. The zoning would, as a permitted use, allow more flexibility to lean into that.
Okay, so it could be either or both, and it could switch back and forth over the years without having to go through any
Yes.
hoops, okay.
So for example, we have parcels downtown that apply for SUPs for apartments. And they have been able to maintain it through the continued use of those apartments. So when they sell it, immediately the other person, naturally in that case, because you're trying to make money off,
Yeah,
it's a good investment, yeah. But those have continued that way. For example, we had Lumpkins had to apply for an SUP for continued use because of the technicality, they were
Yeah.
grandfathering themselves back in to make sure. Sorry, but I really agree with Lincoln. I think this, like walking down and asking yourself,
Yeah.
hey, what pieces of this, you use the current zoning map. Take a quick look at our current zoning, commercial zoning. And ask yourself, well, what do I envision here? Lindy gave a great example, it's like, do I feel like this building would be better used down the road as mixed use? Or do I want the opportunity for it to become down mixed use, cause, you know, maybe it doesn't, but. You wanna open the doors.
I am really disappointed in the fact that, you know, people go through the trouble of doing an SUP. And then they don't follow through on their plan that they're kind of proposing. I'll use, for example, the Scottsville house. They were able to operate their Airbnbs because they were able to get an SUP off of a commercial property. But they're not using it for commercial at all. You know what I mean? So I wonder about how that works, you know, because it's basically an empty storefront. Except for that
I think
there's curtains in the window.
It's typically for an SUP, I don't know about that example, but
That is
You
not
have
a
a-
good example,
you
but
have a date to make that change, for instance, 2 years, and if that change is not made, then the
Well,
SUP.
it's the original commercial zoning. They just added the Airbnb but never used the commercial space.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like. I don't understand how we can kind of. I'm not gonna worry about that, but that was an example that I was wondering about.
Did we have the meeting last month about commercial?
Yeah, about ideas of
Statistics and trying to.
what we like, different ideas of bringing business or business people down, yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll look forward to, I'll try to find that YouTube video.
So that brings up another interesting topic. I mentioned to some of you earlier, I went to Gordonsville last night. Based on Molly's recommendation, and yeah, they only have to what I saw, one vacant storefront, and it was papered up, but tremendous occupancy rate. I'd say 98% or 99% of stores.
It's
Yeah.
not apples to apples, unfortunately, because there's one entity that owns most of the buildings, but.
Two benefactors, to my understanding.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
north of the railroad track, one of the south.
Right.
But in conversation with the planning commissioner that picked me up in Charlottesville and drove me there and back,
Nice.
he was very kind. Yeah, it seems like even that town has a lot of similar challenges to Scottsville. And you know, they, for instance, had some appeal go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, right? But they didn't have any officials appointed to the board.
Sounds so familiar.
Scottsville looked like appointees, yeah, but it's these same conversations.
Yeah,
And also they have certain, you know, discrepancies in their ordinances and so forth, so.
yeah,
Yeah, and they're planning on starting their comp plan process quite soon, and I was telling them about the strategic plan. And I think the thing that they really appreciate the most, if you might remember that diagram that I showed, that you start with the strategic plan, it feeds down to the comp plan, and then the ordinances are updated, yeah. I think that really stuck with them the most, the process from.
Yeah.
And that's what Scottsville has done, the first strategic plan, based on Eileen's work, and then now the comp plan, yeah. So, yeah, just kind of using that as an example of commercial space, that's aspirational, but they do have benefactors.
yeah.
But my question to them, I had two questions. One is, what happens if these benefactors were no longer interested or not able to keep going in that capacity? What happens to the town? And it'd be detrimental, right?
Yeah, you would hope that this benefactor had been in it long enough not to damage it for the future.
Or, you know, things happen in terms of life and people.
Yeah,
Continue to pass away or whatever,
There's-
time and changes in priorities, right? And then the
Sure.
town could be devastated. The
yeah,
second question I had to them was, what happens when you get off the main street? And it looks a lot like Scottsville when you get off the main street. They
Yeah.
had their streetscape project, just like Scottsville has
Yeah.
had. Yeah, so it's double the size of Scottsville and a little bit slightly more, but it's just interesting. So I really appreciate your introduction to them.
no problem. Yeah, they're really nice.
Yeah, and I didn't get into the details with them about their progression of land use downtown, but that'd be an interesting topic actually.
Yeah.
To see how they approach it, because they have a lot of. 2-story buildings, I guess,
Mhm.
kind of like Scottsville, 1-story, 2-story, yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that one was like an old warehouse and it had, you know, the Coca-Cola or Pepsi Cola or whatever sign on the side of it. And
Dr.
just.
Pepper, yeah, saw
Dr.
that.
Pepper.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But, you know, just having that, you know, it was probably something else and they turned it into whatever it is now, but yeah.
So how does the benefactor influence whether stores are occupied and there's a thriving business?
well, I asked the planning commissioner, what's the rent, and I assume that the rent rate is the driving factor of that.
Does the benefactor, he's the landlord, like he's the owner,
A tremendous strip of land,
so he's renting it at rates where
And
he
so
knows
he's-
people could be
Well, that's
successful.
Yeah.
renting period.
And he's, yeah, renting period,
And-
but he has a stake in the game, you know, it's like.
well, you know, I asked questions around that. And not a lot of people know what. How it all pencils out, but.
Oh, should I
it-
stop talking?
But it has had a tremendous benefit to the town, so.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a private matter, I guess we could phrase it that way, and it
Right,
is high occupancy, yeah, so.
What I'll often see. I actually don't know the context here, because we haven't gotten to talk about it, but you have a new investor come in. The first thing you're gonna do with the new investment is try to make something off of that investment rather than sitting on an old property. So you come in, you buy a new mall, and then you'll raise rents a little bit, you're engaged in trying to get full occupancy. So that there is a good momentum about new benefactors coming into an aspect. The other downside is, you know, things change and sometimes you're on the short end of the stick, but. You know, somebody comes in and is trying to make it a business rather than. Kind of sitting on it, that might be what it is, without, for the record, even talking to Luke about it, that's just what I've seen elsewhere. And then,
We've got it here with Lumpkins.
yeah. Yeah,
And this benefactor, one of them, from what I understand, there used to be a Dollar General, downtown, right across the street from their town hall.
that's kind of creepy.
Yeah. And the benefactor told Dollar General recently, oh, you're not in my long-term plan. I'm not renewing your lease.
yikes.
So for someone to have that much power to kind of sculpt your
Yeah.
downtown.
And there's a vision there that no one has here.
Well,
Really?
when you have a few landowners and they are all aligned. And they're really, heading towards something, then yeah, they're motivated, right?
Yeah.
And they can say, not Dollar General, no, but what moved in was, to my understanding, the post office. As a public use,
Yeah,
the post office was next door and moved into the old Dollar General, and now in the old post office is something else, like a antique mall or something,
Right.
it's. As you
It's
mentioned,
really-
Dollar General is something else than an antique mall, but you know what I mean.
And then, one thing thinking about, because I found this to be kind of interesting, talking with planning commission, I think, for example, like commercial zoning, it's about incentivizing, but also it's about. What are you putting a barrier towards, or what are you not putting a barrier towards, just so we don't put as much weight on zoning being the end all be all on being able to. Address a lot of the issues that I think the planning commission really tries to drill down on. Just from permitted use to special use, just think of it that way. So, again, like I just really like Lincoln's example, if you walk down and say, well, what in our. For example, the proposal for mixed use, what in that language would incentivize the things that I wanna see at this portion of downtown? You could apply that to any of the recommendations we shared today. Rural, for example, we touched upon.
Yeah. And also it. I'm sure you all go to Food Lion. Maybe also have a look up here, I highlight, we we already spoke about. You know, the southern end of the Tiger Fuel parcel. And then these businesses over here, you know, what do you see this being in the future? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as you remember, there used to be a few small houses on here and,
Mhm.
yeah. If I was gonna see some rental housing or some workforce housing in Scottsville in a large amount. I would kind of think it'd be kind of here, it's next to the gas station, next to food.
Is that in between the Uptown and Dollar General?
Yeah,
Okay, or Tiger Fuel and Dollar General.
yeah,
And closer towards
Yeah,
the.
I thought people were saying that was too steep or not enough. Or is that
For a sidewalk.
behind there?
yeah, behind
Okay.
Tiger Fuel, it drops off,
Okay,
but with. A more dense rental housing, you could kind of mitigate that slope in different
okay,
ways, yeah.
gotcha.
But yeah, have a thought up there, because in my recommendation, there's. Two big moves in terms of zoning, one is something over here. And then one is something here, and then some maybe small fine tuning down here. Yeah. And then, for instance, as we know, Bird Street is already residential now. So that's gonna change in our future land use map. So we'll just keep going, because that segues into the industrial change and. So just to kind of restate. We will recommend adding mixed use, but will also retain commercial, so this needs to be reworded.
Just for clarity.
Okay, and then this is what I was segueing into, the light industrial and heavy industrial to just industrial. So this was Lawless's recommendation. This was written in 2018 before any tire factory matters, yeah.
I believe. I'm gonna go back and ask some people who have very good historical knowledge. I believe industrial got split up because we were trying to incentivize some more. Use out of the western part of town, the factory itself. But it didn't pan. I'll write something back to you. I don't think it really helped with incentive of revitalizing that factory. And I think this is, go ahead, it's more straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I gave the example, I think previously was, a gravel factory or a concrete plant could move in tomorrow, right? If the landowner wanted.
Josh, do you remember from your tenure, because I think this got switched over right before Matt came on?
Yeah, so there's like it's like a pin drop for heavy industrial within the light industrial. They showed like probably 5-10 people and trying to get anybody interested. The warehouse ceiling was just gonna be too short for getting any kind of light and or heavy industrious companies in. And then also now with trucking companies, we're just too far off the grid for not being next to a highway.
Yeah. Well,
That was
what
kind
would
of
this do, when you combine it? Does it just mean that any of that land could be either one?
Yeah, so basically by combining them, you would then give the full range of heavy industrial to the entirety of the property along with what light industrial, because light industrial covering the heavy industrial part. But yeah, if you were to combine them both, you would then give the whole parcel the full right of
Yeah, either one.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
I don't know, is that what we want?
What page is that on?
On the Word doc, it's on page 98.
Oh,
That's in the appendix, I don't know.
okay. I was gonna say, since it goes to name 7.
So the interesting thing on the current zoning map, if we pull that onto the screen, how please. That's the discrepancy I also noticed. This is the current zoning map on the town website. You can see there's one purple, and if we go down to the legends of here. That one purple is light industrial.
We don't have heavy industrial listed at all.
So heavy industrial somehow went away, but on this older map, it's here in the footprint of the factory, I assume.
So we're going from light industrial only to heavy industrial.
My best guess, cause I caught the tail end of it, is that at some point it got switched to light industrial during the development of apartments. I gotta go back. That's another one, that somebody.
Did they just?
It is,
Oh, from heavy to light?
cause they shoot us up. I came in like right
I
when
don't think so.
that whole thing.
Yeah, that was always like
No, I think-
industrial, since I've been here.
Okay.
It's 2018.
Alright, then I gotta dig through it. Thank you, cause I
Yeah.
only have like a 3 year.
So maybe Javier, we go back to the Word doc, because I think this is a good point that we're talking about. If you combine it all into one umbrella use, then you're granting. All of those. If we go down to the next page. Yeah, it's basically just deleting heavy industrial and
Condensing it.
condensing into light industrial.
That might be. That would be most seen. In our zoning code rewrite. You would have the comp plan and then you would just essentially be. Taking that out and then clarifying it.
Yeah, but there's a question here. This was long ago, whatever year this was, 2013. If this was heavy industrial and the building is still there and there's something going on there, sort of. Would it retain this heavy industrial? Rights?
Yeah, I know where you're going. I gotta go back, maybe we report back. I think we have to dig through.
So maybe a question mark there and not a commitment to both.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation would be to. To think beyond industrial and more like high tech, like drone manufacturing or something.
Yeah, because heavy industrial, I guess I'd have to really delve into what that means, but. That's exactly what the town does not want. Right?
Well, I think 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it was common to have heavy industrial next to your town, especially if you're a river town
Yeah,
or a railroad town.
okay. I just hate to leave us open to that when that's not what we want to see in our future.
I think it's one of those things we can kick the can down the road a little bit because we don't have anybody knocking our doors down on that section.
That we know of.
Well,
Yeah.
These things always happen like
Spur of the moment.
under the table for a couple of
So
years.
there's
But I do think, Josh. When you mentioned like the market's changed, holds a lot of weight, because I've heard the same thing a lot. Where it's like the route's too small, we're not, we aren't on 64, but I always think 64 going across is. A good example, even Albemarle is zoning towards taking advantage of that. Yeah, I think Lincoln has a good thought. Even as a consideration, to start thinking,
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of the comp plan is to look up to 20 years in the future. So,
Sure, and possibly see a road that went through the other side instead of having it come through the town.
well, I would assume that roads are gonna pretty much stay how they are,
Mhm.
if not slightly upgraded. But more in terms of use, I mean, maybe the planning commission recommends that, yes. In the long term, there should be residential there. It's just a question of what type of residential. You don't have to specify exactly, but. Or you could recommend something high tech. Or industrial, you can just figure how it is, don't have to change anything.
Yeah,
But what is the long-term vision? And that long-term vision is that also helps to guide. Any potential developer. Just like we're talking about downtown, what happens if we change some things to mixed use in the long-term future, right? That's some tweaking.
I
It's like-
think heavy industrial just sounds really intense
Mhm.
and a decision.
And would
So
it
to
affect
open it up,
landowner property values on that part of town if it turned into a gravel dump or a
Yeah.
concrete plant?
But I think that's why the language changes it to industrial and then cuts out. That way, the red behind me is heavy industrial getting cut off. And that might have been that intention a few years back.
or just to not have it mentioned.
No, just to reduce it down, because
Okay.
like you said, like heavy's like. You think heavy,
Yeah,
it,
I mean, I think that all of the things that were told to us that were gonna happen because we didn't use the factory for the residential. That trucks would be coming down Bird Street and all of that. I would assume that that would come mostly from a heavy industrial type situation. Then I don't know what constitutes light industrial.
Well, they were talking about making it the business park back there when the apartments all through that.
Oh, no, I know, yeah.
I'm just saying that would be an example.
Okay,
Like the construction staging.
like the storage kind of place, yeah. And that was certainly better. I just was saying that if that was to come true, I'm not really sure that's what we want.
And last evening, Gordonsville also having an apartment complex, not as big as that one, but. Off on a side street, not quite as far as Bird Street, but same sort of context. And I heard the feedback was also people worried about traffic.
Mhm.
But they weren't able to quantify that concern, just like from what I understand from the factory discussion, it was very difficult to quantify how much traffic, what type of traffic would that be,
Yeah,
you know? So I just mentioned that because it's miraculous how many similarities there are between Gordonsville and Scottsville. You know?
here I thought that it was just not comparable, so that's kind of interesting. I love it.
So just to recap on this, I'm concerned about the long historical legal precedent in terms of, you can just change the color on the map, but that doesn't change the rights necessarily.
yeah, we need to dig into that
Yeah,
on our side.
vaguely recall, there is no heavy industrial left. So I don't know, I mean, and I could be wrong, I'll look back in my emails and stuff, but I seem to recall it's just a non-issue in our town, we don't have it any longer.
I thought that was the case.
Yeah. And that's why it was struck, because it was no longer relevant, or kind of downsized the text.
Yeah, I mean, I would think Mr. Bowling might have some interesting insights, so like. Because there's an existing building there on site and it's being used for something. They could someone could argue that. It's heavy industry right now and they want to continue that use. I'm just playing devil's advocate, yeah.
I know where you're going, yeah.
Because I wouldn't want the planning commission to have like a paper exercise, but not really have implication on site as it would be intended to. I would just suggest checking with Mr. Bowling.
We'll dig into it.
So, but irregardless of that separate discussion, yeah, I would suggest have a drive around town, in the uptown, in downtown. And even think about the tire factory, what kind of vision do you want to set for the future? And then I will meanwhile. Update this text like what we discussed, mixed use is going to be additional, not replacing commercial, things like that. And then I will work with Javier on the GIS map. And we'll see if we can have that zoom in and we can have a more detailed discussion based on your sidewalk thoughts. I think that'll be really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you could give me feedback on that Word document I sent you. And then I will continue to work on drafting those half pagers for the those, the matrix, the weaving that we talked about. So I need to keep on writing those, we have 2 bullet points per intersection, so I need to write about those 2 bullet points and all the details. So our next meeting will be January.
January 6th.
Lincoln, we were gonna meet, and I had it on my calendar for the 4th.
What the December?
December, but that's not right. When should we meet to talk about photos?
Um,
Or
4th of December, I'll be on the way back to Tangier. I'll be probably on the ferry.
of course,
But I could.
that's why I'm asking about it, because I'm like, that's not happening.
I could discuss it on the. 5th, I think.
Okay,
Let me just send you a calendar invite, right now. You look at my calendar.
me too. Well, anyway, I mean, we don't have to do that right now. I just wanted to mention it to you and,
Oh, it's good to get it on the calendar.
okay,
Maybe 7 p.m. on the 5th.
gotcha.
So we'll be discussing those photographs, and if there's from Molly's archive,
Yeah, or anything you need.
anything else, I mean, anyone else want to join the photo discussion, or? Because basically what we're doing, we're looking for photographs to kind of visually illustrate the things we're talking about in the comp plan. Yeah, so like we don't have right now any good 4th of July photographs, in my opinion, and that's something you might have.
You got a ton,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I know that's what you have. And then other like Bateau Festival, because we do have photos of
Yeah.
Bateau Festival, but we can maybe improve. Okay.
Well, I've got plenty of all that. I just was gonna go through the comp plan where you have photos. And look and see if there's anything else that can be highlighted.
So maybe I'll put that for 45 minutes. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So. When you're ready to have a question.
Okay. Okay, go for it.
All right, so we have 97 pages or 90 pages of text right now. And that still there's some parts of it that still need to be reviewed. They're going to be read, right? So if any changes have been made and have you accepted the changes?
Yes.
Okay.
Previously, right before the last meeting, I went through and I saw, for instance, Forestall versus Forestry, so I accepted all those comments or whatever you mentioned, and I made those updates. Previously, we had a lot of track changes and it was becoming too heavy to look in the document, so I went through and accepted everything. I know, for instance, the previous gentleman that was on planning commission,
Matthew
yeah.
Johnson.
he had gone and made quite a few edits, so I went through and accepted I think everything. So
Like grammatical.
yeah, grammatical or rephrasing a sentence or two, or things like that. Yeah. So there's just a few very small areas that are still highlighted in yellow. It's just like a sentence or a word that I think those are the things. And then if you go back up, Javier, so, I'm sorry, is that okay? So like if we need to fill in the date of whenever this is eventually approved, I put a yellow to remind us. Okay.
Cody Walls, maintenance commission, should be updated.
Well, so that's kind of crediting the previous staff, so Mr. Lawless, Cody,
Oh, I get
Emily, just kind of being, wide ranging in the thank yous, so.
I was checking.
I put Elizabeth Knox in there, so I updated that, And then if you go down, you have the current town council, so, let's see. Yeah, so this, we just have to update one more time, yeah. So if we keep going down, look for a yellow area, so here, okay, so this is that area I need to go back and put in our final figure. So this is probably the most important sentence in the whole comp plan. Next slide's yellow, okay, so, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so these are very minor localized areas.
So, all right, so the track changes have been updated, the yellow fields need finalization.
Yeah.
You said the 2 paragraphs on the engagements that we had,
Yeah,
that needs to be done.
so all the engagement text, I wrote, about a page and a quarter for each engagement event, and then Javier wrote for the, business roundtable. So that's all in the appendix, so that's included in the 97 pages.
Okay, awesome.
So the only thing there is to write, paragraph or 2 kind of explaining. You know, we had these events and, refer to appendix for all the details.
Okay,
So that's community engagement summary.
okay,
Then the intersections. And then a summary of the strategic plan. So that's 1, 2, 3 things there. I think Javier's still working on the
survey summary,
survey.
which will include in the appendix also. Part of the intention of cataloging a lot of information. Because we just don't want things that, I think it's the conclusion we had.
And then there's one other small area, I think we wanted to do a pie chart of the town existing budget by percentage.
Mhm.
So,
Let me do that, I'm already up. Oh, we're good.
well, I was just kind of recall. Because you're the guy that knows the budget.
Yeah, I'm halfway there.
Well, it's gonna take a lot of scrolling, but anyway, that's the one thing, so I've already written that section. And I put in yellow X's the percentage, so I say the percentage of town budget spent on police. The percentage of town budget spent on maintenance and so, yeah. And I think that's important because there is a discussion in town of what is the percentage of budget used for infrastructure versus police or something like that. So it'll be quite apparent once you see that in a pie chart. You know, the percentage that's spent on sidewalks and infrastructure is very, very low, of course, right? Because there hasn't been that investment over the years, right? So like, for instance, the matching grant, the town got the matching grant for the sidewalks and wasn't able to make the match, right? So, yeah. So again, this is that pie chart, I believe I proposed 2 pie charts there. That's one way of explaining in graphical form the importance of investing in infrastructure and weighing that expense versus other potential expenses of the town, right?
all right, so let me make sure, I think I might have missed one, so just. Tell me if I missed it.
Commercial engagement summary.
Yes, community engagement summary.
That's-
Yeah, so a paragraph, right, okay, good, and then the summary of the strategic plan, was there anything in between that?
The intersections, remember the.
Yes, intersections,
Yeah.
oh, so that's to describe, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
The weave,
Yeah, and then the Javier is working on the survey summary and then the pie charts.
okay, awesome. So what are we thinking about the ETA on those, when do you think we can get those in?
Okay, let's see. Community engagement summary is very quick, strategic plan summary, very quick,
The intersections is gonna take the longest.
you know. So,
And I'd love for you to do it because you will have the
Yeah.
best words.
so here's what I suggest we, Molly and I have a comp plan, photo discussion on. Thursday. So maybe what we could do is another two of us could have a discussion maybe on the week of the 17th, or sorry, it's Monday the 16th. That week, we could discuss some of the intersections. Yeah, that'll give me a good deadline too. So what about Monday's not a good night. I know Javier, you've got your town council meeting. I could do something that Tuesday this 17th or Thursday the 19th. Or you know,
I'm happy to participate. I could do either of those 2 nights.
I'm free also.
okay, so 17th or 19th, so
I got the 17th.
Okay.
What do you think? I think so too. I think because the closer we get to Christmas, the more chaotic our lives are gonna be.
Yeah, that's very true.
so this will be comp plan intersections discussion.
So, and how would you like us to prepare for that meeting? Because
It's-
I feel like the hard part is like putting the words down on paper and just coming up, so maybe we should come up with some keywords or phrases that might help you fill it out.
I would suggest keywords, but examples around town. So so you already have this weaving document, right? The revision 2 it's called. Let me just go to you so. I can resend it to you.
Cite actual examples and maybe like received examples.
Yeah, so like, let me just pull up an example here, build out infrastructure and retain small town character. Okay. So, the bullet points, the second bullet point is improved sense of arrival to town along Route 20 and Route 6. So if you're driving into town next week, you take a look, I was actually looking at it when I came in tonight. That sign is still there, it's quite small. I think Eileen's proposal was to have a more grand entrance sign, a sense of arrival.
Yeah.
She was going to apply for downtown grant from, was it T-Mobile or something, Main Street America, funded by T-Mobile or something. That never came to fruition, but I think the idea is a sense of arrival important? And I think it's one thing to talk about it here, but another thing to go to the town entrance and take a photograph and really think about it, yeah.
Oh, I have some great, that's some great ideas. I just don't think anybody got up for.
But not only
Well, I'm thinking Vegas.
the entrance, neon lights, not only at you know, the entrance at 20, but also at 6, you know, into Fluvanna, yeah. What does that entrance look like? Could we have a uniform entrance, like a, you know, similar signage at 20, but also at 6? Because I did not look last night at Gordonsville signage, but you know, having a sense of arrival is very important for tourism, I think. And meals tax is a huge benefactor to the town. That's an interesting thing. I was talking about meals tax last night with Gordonsville. They don't focus as much on meals tax, but they do have a real estate tax on top of the county tax. Yeah. So it's a different mix of income, yeah. But yeah, so that's one example, improved sense of arrival to town along Route 20. So when you're coming into town next from both directions, have a thought on that, yeah.
Could throw this out, I understand that Lincoln really is the subject matter expert on our comp plan over the last more than a year. But Does anyone on the planning commission feel comfortable maybe taking one of those intersections and trying a very rough draft? And then we could use one of those meetings to kind of massage in and kind of add input on putting it together.
I don't mind doing that at all, except I really feel like Lincoln, I mean, he just has such a great way with words, I mean.
She's handling, what's
He's-
going on?
And the whole text has been written in his voice, so it's a little hard to go, but we could certainly take a stab at it and with his help, if that would be helpful to Lincoln.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it cuts both ways, I mean, I like that idea, and I also like the ideas, I do some rough text, and then we sit together and ideate, I guess I could say it. Because I don't know the entrance corridor as well as you all do, and your thoughts, I don't come into the entrance corridor every day. That's just one example, so, the others,
12, right?
yeah, 12 is a lot, even though they're half pagers, in theory.
It's always hard.
So basically, here, maybe what I suggest, we could do a test for that meeting in mid-December. Maybe one of you could take one intersection and another could take another intersection and I'll do others. So maybe, for instance, Molly, you do build out infrastructure and retain small town character. And then
Jason's got it.
yeah. Lisa, you could do provide housing choices and retain small town character.
Mhm.
And then I will do create community connections, retain small town character, and demonstrate value and have physical well-being and small town character. And then you can kind of get a sense for what to think about and how hard it might be. So then when we do it, then we can kind of ideate together, and once you kind of do it yourself once, then you kind of think about it in your mind, you kind of understand some of the considerations for later things, and then we can kind of crowdsource it more.
Okay.
I think that'll be nice, yeah. Because you don't really understand the process like most things until you do it yourself.
Yeah,
And so then you kind of.
Lincoln's not
think
gonna
about
be
it.
here,
Yeah.
seems like it.
Yeah. Okay, so build out infrastructure and retain small town characters one, and then the other one's provide housing choices and small town character, and I'll do the other two. Okay,
Did Gordonsville hire you?
Uh,
Their comp plan, that's all.
no, we didn't get that discussion, but we're having a call next week actually, so. Yeah.
I think that's great.
I do too. You're gonna be
My-
busier
My
than.
professors
If
told me
it's
to
good for
focus on.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Molly, if you had a chance to look at their comprehensive plan document. It is very long.
Yeah,
And they include a tremendous number of appendix documents.
yeah,
They did their rewrite in 2011.
yeah.
And it took them 5 years to do it.
I thought it was 2017 that they did it,
No, that,
and that
or
it's
maybe.
at
maybe
their
I'm-
5-year, 6-year mark or something.
I think they're behind on the 5 year from
They
last
are.
time, yeah.
They are,
But anyway,
but that's okay.
Yeah.
It is okay.
but what I noticed in their document is, and I told this to them and people I talked to, they agree that their goals section seems to be very light. It's only a 1-pager. And what they do is they mix goals with principles and strategies. So, and they all call them goals. So my recommendation, I told them what we did here. To kind of take out the principles and they're separate from the goals. And I'm not saying that we would do the same exact thing,
Well,
but they just need to be very clear on what the terminology is. Because a strategy is much different than a principle.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think they really appreciate the process that we've done here.
I think it's good to get a different perspective, especially they were talking about, let's just, wing it and move forward, not in those words at all and very seriously, but they had done a lot of work on it in 2017, so I think that's what I got from it. I don't know, it could be 2011, but
Yeah,
Anyway.
I might be wrong myself, but
okay.
yeah, I mean, my recommendation by looking at the comp plan was just to mainly focus on the goals section.
Yeah,
And they don't really have to do very much updating at all,
yeah,
except for the data. They are having a similar problem with the
Yeah.
data, yeah.
yeah, I think I mentioned that when we first talked about it, that was something that they really wanted
Yeah.
to get help with, but. You know, whatever, wherever it goes.
It might be easier for them because they are a standalone census designated place or area, and they're not split between two counties.
Yeah,
So it might be a little bit easier for them.
did you all talk at all about land, surrounding areas and,
Well, another similarity that Scottsville and Boysville have, they also had a boundary adjustment
yeah,
a while back.
and they're planning another one, right?
That's
or
that's what I
not.
heard, yeah, they're gonna do some rearrange, because they've had some big companies leave, like a big fabric company and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was telling Javier earlier, it might be worthwhile to kind of have a convening of small town administrators every
I
couple
know.
quarters.
I think
or
it's really,
Small town planning commissions. So
yeah,
to kind of compare notes on what's happening.
gossip
Yeah.
about what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just to let people know that they're not the only ones encountering some of these challenges.
yeah, yeah. I think so. I really enjoyed my meeting with them and they seem to have, you know, similar to what we have as far as staff and things like that. It's a lot. But
Okay, so I'll send those calendar invites out in a few moments. To you all.
So do you think we could have that nailed down by the first meeting in January?
We might not have all 12 intersections done. But I suspect we could have 8 out of 12 maybe. And that will give us, if we can talk at the next meeting about those 8 intersections all as one group. I think that will be quite good progress because what we can do is we work on this first 4, and once we're comfortable as 3 on those 4, then we email it to the rest. And then you guys can have a look and see if we have any blind spots and such. And then while we're working on the next 4, and then we can discuss the first 8 together. And then maybe in January we do the last 4 intersections.
Yeah,
I think that'd be good. Yeah.
because I think those 12 is a big weight, the other ones. It's some tweaking and we've made pretty decent progress, and that's kind of what I
and
was thinking.
you're gonna be talking to Mr. Bowling about
The industrial.
the industrial. I don't mean to harp on that, but it just was kind of like, I don't know what we should do to
No,
make sure about that.
I think it's good it came up now,
Okay,
because I haven't really touched that area of the town
yeah,
with a 10-foot pole.
I've tried looking at some of my old emails, but I've got to be connected to both Wi-Fi and have it on charge to pull up from 2015, 2016. Yeah, so I can try to pull some of our old agendas. So some of the, because it shows my responses, it doesn't show what I've received. It talks about the domiciles for, in the language of the, I think, of the heavy industry. It allows for worker buildings, residential.
Anecdotally, I heard that was a back door to get some housing there, but it
Yeah,
didn't really work in the zoning because. You're talking about, 1 or 2 overnight staff,
exactly.
or you live there a whole long time.
And just from my own, not like timeline and planning commission, I don't remember us making a zoning change
Uh-huh.
for them. To drop them from heavy to light. Cause I think that would be the
Well-
only way to do that.
Well, and
right?
specifically, there was a meeting where we had a vote and it was voted not to change the zoning.
Hmm.
So, because actually the plan, the suggestion was to make it village residential.
You might
Do
have.
you remember
Okay.
that?
So,
So. That was
It-
nice to use some.
what I might recommend is,
I don't remember.
Lisa, if you could even get me within like a year.
Yeah,
something,
I'll look
and then
back.
Melanie could dig through
I
all
think,
this.
I thought maybe we had decided to leave it alone though.
We did,
Yeah, okay, good.
yeah, we did.
But I'm hoping to have that at some point in this, maybe. If you could recollect, and then Josh, if you could, again, save me with some historical knowledge,
Yeah,
anything.
Yeah,
yeah, I'll pull all my emails from Amy and see what we have.
Thanks.
okay, so
But meanwhile, if you can look through the Word document that Lee has sent, and just, you know. Look at what's in the appendix versus what's in the main document, so that just familiarize yourself. Because yes, it does look like a lot of pages, but again, it's
Yeah.
appendix. And to tell you the truth, after looking at Gordonsville's comp plan, it's a little bit overwhelming with 200 some pages
mm,
in one PDF, almost 300.
and only one page of goals. Oh, my
Yeah, it's a little-
I know, right?
Balance,
The
yeah.
proportion.
Yeah, that's a little bit, yeah, different, but the reason I mentioned this is, you know. I agree that the document can be too long, but I think with about 100 pages or so, it's okay for us.
Especially with it being. the appendix.
Okay, and one question I do have, these matrix of the weaving. I understand this was shared with town council. I know the planning commission is going ahead its own way, but has there been any other feedback or any other thoughts on these bullet points? Or they pretty much, okay, remember we have 2 bullet points per intersection, right? Yeah. I haven't heard anything, any significant comments or feedback, so I think.
It's gonna delete that whole section.
Oh.
I was gonna say that you'll get the negative comments once you go to approve
I know.
it, that's one of the bad.
You went through all that trouble though to get it to them. It's too bad you didn't get any feedback.
But I think we made significant progress when we narrowed it down to 2 bullet points per intersection, and I think that's good.
Yeah,
But I think when we write these half pages or such about each intersection, there'll be some of these secondary considerations that we need to write down. For instance, some of the zoning updates could be woven in here. Like in industrial, build out infrastructure and enable growth or something, we can factor industrial and all these changes and uses in here, like. Definitely the housing changes that we just spoke about, those will probably come in and provide housing choices. So that's why this, we can draft it and revisit it, it will take a little bit of churning on this to make sure we have all of our bases covered, that's what I'm saying. So that's good to have multiple eyes.
But then Rich and I have is that matrix from, if it wasn't this meeting, the previous meeting, planning commission feels comfortable, okay. But I think that's important, because it'll be part of what you are recommending out, I think that's. It's the product we're providing.
Okay. Great. So if we make that progress with 4 intersections. For that middle December and then another 4 before our next January meeting, I think that's a good pace. And then during our January meeting, we recap those 8 that I just spoke about, and then we tackle the remaining 4 during January sometime.
That point prepared. Yeah.
Is that it, Lincoln?
I think so.
Thank you, excellent. We're in the home stretch.
Yeah.
Um, You said so I saw you sent the comp plan, what specific sections did you want to?
So it's the
all of
one,
us to look
so
at?
what I did, I took that Word document and I,
Oh, was
I
it not the whole
extracted-
thing? I was,
Yeah,
I didn't get it.
like 12 pages.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
12 pages.
It'll be the attachment in the email.
Yeah.
Rather than the link. The attachment rather than the. link.
Oh,
It's the
that's
12
what, because
pages.
I was scrolling through it, I was like, oh, this is the whole thing, so, okay, alright, that makes sense, alright, so attached,
so again, if there's any data in that Word document that's attached,
okay.
that's unclear, you're missing something, then we can talk, you can just send me an email and. Rather talk, but then I can kind of think, oh, is that data available or it's not available? Or we're not able to mention something in a lot of detail. Yeah, so the other thing is Nancy, Miss Nancy Gill, I will I'll try to call her next few days, this week to kind of understand if she's still working on those the
She
tax
has-
map.
Yeah, she was going after a lot during the election and everything, but
I really appreciated her coverage of the election. I was just listening at home, but I can understand the context. Okay,
So, it's, next up, something that just popped into my head is that historically. Planning Commission hasn't met the first. In the month of January. We did last year because we were working on this and we had a big chunk of text coming in for us to review. So we did call a special meeting. But what do we wanna do in this January?
we meet once a month. I really feel like we can plow forward since we have this. You know, we're in the home stretch and I think that, there's some impatience there. We might as well work together to get it done. Is my opinion.
I enjoyed it, but the last time that previous years have really landed really close to the first.
Yeah.
This is one of those weird weeks where we catch it on the following week.
Yes.
So to be charitable and to be, like Molly said, it's like. Because we want to keep up the momentum,
Yeah.
we won't have that same thing where, I really appreciate this, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't go anywhere, but if I had the option to like take my time to come back or something, last time, but. Yeah, we will, that first lands a weird day.
It's on the 6th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all right, so we're on.
I'm just speaking for myself.
I know.
Just realized.
I'm not forcing my will on you, but yeah.
Just saying.
that's a good consideration.
And then also I heard something about a special use plan, special use permit application possibly coming through, is that?
I haven't heard one.
Okay, ooh, Molly had mentioned
Exciting.
something, so I wasn't sure if that was saying that something was coming through,
Oh.
or if it was just like the possibility of something down the road.
No, I hadn't heard of anything. I'm sorry if I
You
wonder what I was talking about.
That's okay, you're probably just talking about the hypothetical that we all
Oh,
expect something
yeah,
we
you
might
mean at
get
this
one.
meeting here?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was talking about, hypothetical. Yeah, there's, I would love it if we had an NCP, that would be,
Yeah, I haven't had anything, but
a
yeah.
break or a little action in the,
I feel like it was really hot and heavy for a while
I
with
know.
Airbnbs and now it's staying.
I know.
Yeah.
But that's okay too, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, anyone have anything else to add?
I don't.
I'll be sending some emails, because I got questions, I think, for everyone here and there.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of things to do between now and January. But that's good. I'm excited to jump in.
Thanks for your input.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Oh, yeah, third.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much, everyone, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Oh, yeah, that is so wild. It's like when Melody was talking about